Thank you. I'm all set. Such an honor to be here. I just feel it's such a friendly crowd. Even if I don't know, stutter or something, no one's going to worry about that. So today, we are here, as Chris said, to begin our journey into learning of the mothers of Jesus. Jesus was born through them. They're all in his lineage, and he's born in us. And so I titled this message, A Thrill of Hope, No More Gloom. Am I going in the right direction?
Yeah.
Don't do it yet? Okay. Well, you're going to see in a moment the slide. There's hope, yeah. Okay, but the next one is.
One with the pen.
Yes. Oh, now it's not advancing. I knew I'd be one of those people. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this, my daughter sent me this picture before I knew I was going to be speaking here. My oldest daughter lives in Brisbane, Australia, so that's what it looks like there right now. And that's my grand dog, Headley. And anyway, she took a picture, and it's a banner that was outside a church next door to where she has her coffee, and they just had that banner, A Thrill of Hope, and just kind of landed, you know. Yeah. So, of course, that's the first line of one of the stanzas of O Holy Night. And so it goes, a thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. So I'm sure Tamar would have been able to relate to the words of this hymn. In her life, she experienced the sorrow of loss multiple times. She had a dark, hopeless existence for many years with no end in sight. And yet God did break through the gloom of her circumstances and ultimately gave her more than she'd dreamed of. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to go through the story several verses at a time, and then I'm going to comment on it, okay? Okay, so I'm going to read it. I chose the Message translation. It's very similar to the NIV, same sort of details. So I thought, well, I like the Message. It just seemed to tell you. There's a few things that are a little bit, different, but let's read it. About that time, Judah separated from his brothers and went to stay with a man in Adullam named Hirah. While there, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite named Shua. He married her. They went to bed, and she became pregnant and had a son named She got pregnant again and had a son named Onan. She had still another son, and she named this one Shelah. They were living at Kizib when she had him. So, about that time, like this story appears in the Bible in the middle of the Joseph story. So this chapter 37 is right at the time that Joseph has been sold into slavery by his brothers. Then this Tamar story pops up, and then back to the Joseph story after this. And so about that time, Judah had actually been the brother who said, well, let's not kill Joseph, let's just kill him and make some money. But then we'll tell our dad he was killed by a wild animal. So that was Judah's idea. So about that same time, Judah then went away down to this place to stay with Hirah, and that's where he met his wife. And anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's like, how did they choose that name for their firstborn son? I mean, he's going to be the heir of the family. He's the firstborn. And so this is how I suspect it went. I think Judah's wife said to him, honey, what should we name him? And Judah said, that's it. His name is And I can almost prove it because in the footnotes it says that Onan means strong and vigorous. That's the second son, but it doesn't say anything about in the footnotes. So I rest my case. Anyway, yeah, so that's that. Yeah. So verses 6 and 7. So Judah got a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn grievously offended God, and God took his life. So it sounds very matter of fact, doesn't it? Just got a wife, go get a wife, And her name was Tamar. Well, Tamar's name is very deep, the meaning of it. It means palm tree in Hebrew. And a palm tree is a symbol of strength and uprightness. And that tree has the ability to withstand adverse conditions. Like you've probably seen, on TV when there's like a tropical storm, the palm trees just bend right over, but they don't break. And so that's a prophetic name there for Tamar. So Judah told Onan, "Go and sleep with your brother's widow. It's the duty of a brother-in-law to keep your brother's line alive." But Onan knew that the child wouldn't be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's widow, he spilled his semen on the ground so he wouldn't produce a child for his brother. God was much offended by what he did and also took his life. So Judah stepped in and told his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow at home with your father until my son Shelah grows up." He was worried that Shelah would also end up dead, just like his brothers. It's in the Bible. So Tamar went to live with her father. Yeah. So, when Tamar married into this family, she's now dependent on them. Like that, it's not just it's the whole family here, the men, and so you can imagine on her wedding day, she's excited, I'm marrying we're going to have a happy life, I'm going to bear lots of children, the family line's continuing through us. There was lots to look forward to. And then, what do you know? His life is taken. And then, but she knows there's this thing called the Levirate, what's it called? Levirate law that the Hebrew people were required to keep in those days. And so there was like Onan had a duty to produce children for his brother. Apparently this law was actually in place even up until the 1950s in some, Hebrew communities. So it's been a long-standing tradition. But the thing was, Judah would have to, they would not be, Onan would not be considered the father. That would not be his line. It would be his brother's children. And so they also were entitled to the inheritance. So if he had children, then he would not be next in line for the inheritance. So there were some reasons there why he wasn't keen to have those children. But anyway, it didn't work out well for him because he passed as well. So there were 3 brothers. Now 2 of them are dead. So Tamar's waiting. She's waiting. She's probably wondering, well, what next? And so everything's on hold. And Judah reassures her, well, just go wait. This other son must have been a bit younger. He'll grow up and eventually he'll be your husband. But as we can see, Judah was not that excited about Shelah marrying Tamar. It's almost like there was some blame shifting, like there must be something wrong with her because how come 2 of my sons have died? What if the third one gets together with her and he passes as well? So time passed, and Judah's wife, Shua's daughter, died. And when the time of mourning was over, Judah, with his friend Hirah of Adullam, went to Timnah for the sheep shearing. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law has gone to Timnah to shear his sheep." She took off her widow's clothes, put on a veil to disguise herself, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which was on the road to Timnah. She realized by now that even though Shelah was grown up, she wasn't going to be married to him. So she had waited and waited and waited. Now she realizes no word from Judah. This isn't happening. Shelah was grown. He was not going to be marrying her. She'd never heard from Judah. She'd been forgotten, put aside. She's living as a widow, which is a really restrictive life, especially in those times. Like, they had to wear widow's garments, this modest, dark, rough clothing. It was like a picture of their vulnerability, of grief and mourning. Like, imagine living like that year on end, not knowing if it's ever going to end. So she paid a price for Judah's unwillingness to follow through on what his obligation to her was. But I think this is probably the turning point in the story, because up until that point, she's waiting first on Judah, then she's waiting on her first husband, then Onan, and then Judah to, the hope that Shelah would marry her. Waiting on these men. But I believe this must have been the time where she shifted and was waiting on God, because she didn't let go. She didn't fully lose hope. She waited. So something in her, I believe, probably just became an aha moment. If this is going to happen, God's got to be in it. He's the only one I can trust and put my hope in. So Judah, as he's on this road, he saw her. She's sitting at the crossroads. He assumed she was a prostitute since she had veiled her face. He left the road and went over to her. He said, "Let me sleep with you." He had no idea that she was his daughter-in-law. And so again, this was such a risky, radical step for her to, sit there and wait. And, she must have felt a lot of shame and humiliation, because this was not the way life began. This was not what she was expecting. But she was determined to see this family line continue. That was what in her heart was her purpose. And she still held on to God as her hope that this still could happen. So she said to Judah, "What will you pay me?" He said, "I'll send you a kid goat from the flock." She said, "Not unless you give me a pledge until you send it." "So what would you want in the way of a pledge?" She said, "Your personal seal and cord and the staff you carry." He handed them over to her and slept with her, and she got pregnant. She then left and went home. She removed her veil and put her widow clothes back on. So I actually loved the savvy way she did business with him. It's like, "Okay, buddy." He offered what was probably typical in those days, a young goat. And she must have known, he didn't have it trailing along behind him, that he'd have to send it, pay up at some point. So she was ready, to ask for some collateral. But so she basically asked for his ID. It was this seal and cord thing was this metal, individualized, hammered out name or something. You used it to sign things. It was, you put it into wax and then your seal was on it and they knew it was you. It was very personal, your driver's license, that type of thing. And then his staff, that was a sign of, his authority as, one of the heads of the tribes. And so she asked for that. And the part I can't get over is why did he hand it over? What was he thinking? I don't think he was thinking. He just hands it over. He thinks it's a prostitute. She's a complete stranger. He had one thing on his mind, let's face it, Yeah. So anyway, he sends the kid goat. He follows through, but he sends his friend to do it. He doesn't go back there. So his friend from Adullam goes to recover the pledge from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He asked the men of that place, "Where's the prostitute that used to sit by the road here near Enaim?" They said, "There's never been a prostitute here." He went back to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her. The men there said there never has been a prostitute there." Judah said, "Well, let her have it then. If we keep looking, everyone will be poking fun at us. I kept my part of the bargain. I sent the kid goat, but you couldn't find her." So, yeah, you'd think he'd be very motivated to get his ID back, you know? But he sort of chooses to brush it off because I guess that's better than looking like a fool, you know, in his mind at that time. So, yeah, that's what happened. So then he probably thought, okay, that's the end of that. So 3 months later or so, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law has been playing the whore, and now she's a pregnant whore." I told you there were sordid details. Judah yelled, "Get her out here, burn her up." That's what they did in those days. Pretty serious, wasn't it? So as they brought her out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I'm pregnant by the man who owns these things. Identify them, please. Who's the owner of the seal and cord and the staff?" Judah saw they were his. He said, "She's in the right, and I'm in the wrong. I wouldn't let her marry my son Shelah." He never slept with her again. Yeah. So you think, wow, like as her pregnancy began to show, everyone in the village must have known, like, this widow is pregnant. You can imagine, like, the gossip and just how she was treated, misunderstood. Like, her life would have been miserable. And yet, you know, Judah judged her too at first when he found out. But, you know, it's interesting. It seemed to everyone to be an act of immorality, what she did, but in the end it was an act of justice. And Judah was forced to see the truth that he had nearly jeopardized his family line continuing. And that was a pretty serious thing. So when her time came to give birth, it turned out that there were twins in her womb. As she was giving birth, one put his hand out. The midwife tied a red thread on his hand, saying, "This one came first." But then he pulled it back, and his brother came out. She said, "Oh, a breakout." So she named him Perez, which means breakout. Then his brother came out with the red thread on his hand, and they named him Zerah, which means bright. Yeah, so, you know, Tamar's heart was to fulfill God's plan for Judah's family line. That's all she wanted from the beginning. And ultimately, he alone was her hope. And he gave her a double blessing, 2 children, 2 boys. And Perez is the descendant in the line of Judah of Jesus Christ. So this story is forevermore known, and, you know, we can be in awe of what God has done. Yeah. So just a couple of thoughts on Tamar. So she had these multiple disappointments in her life. Her first husband dying, then his brother dying, after deliberately failing to give her children, which would have been humiliating. Then more disappointment when Judah gave her the false assurance that her 3rd son would marry her when he grew up, and then she never even heard from him again. And then to top it off, she had to basically trick her father-in-law into sleeping with her, which probably wasn't very pleasant on many levels, even though it was his legal duty to provide an heir for his firstborn son. He dropped the ball, and she was scorned and shunned by her community. And yet, in spite of all that, she held on to hope, held on to God, knowing He is always faithful, that He would never let her down. I don't know if she knew the magnitude of her God-given destiny, but her part was just to trust and believe, which she did. So I don't have any more slides, but I just want to talk about hope a little more. I mean, there's been so much revealed today already in the worship and the prayers and everything. It's been a very rich morning. So how do you explain hope? In part, it's an anticipation that something good is coming. And there are two Hebrew words for hope. One is, Leslie could probably say this better than I can, yakal and kavah. And they both mean to wait. The second word implies more of a feeling of tension, expectation while you wait, which I'm sure we can relate to. Because we all long for certain things to happen. And sometimes it's a desperate longing for life to get better, for something to change and answer to prayer. But God's with us in the process, even in the darkest days, just as He was in the life of Tamar. So we wait on God, we hope in Him, we both put our hope in Him, but the thing is, we know that He is our hope. So it's both and. And in that place of growing intimacy, as Dorothy spoke of beautifully earlier, that's where He restores us, transforms us, and brings beauty, answers. And sometimes they're not the answers we initially thought we were looking for, but He's working and molding and changing and bringing what is actually the best in our lives because of His love for us. So a few years back, probably time flies, like when you're 63, it's like, how many years? I think it's probably 15 years. Bruce and I were given a prophetic word at a meeting we were at. And the gist of what was spoken was this. It was, you've been waiting on some things, but I'm going to show you a new kind of waiting on me. And so we'd been focusing on what we wanted Him to do. There were things going on in our life we really wanted to shift. I think one of it was we were kind of in between homes and just really longing for a new home. But there was something a little off about our waiting. And so He was helping us to see that He is our hope. And so we've been on this long journey of understanding that, of making that real in our life, that He is our hope. He is everything we need. So we shifted our focus from waiting to see that He is enough. He embodies hope. And then, as it says in Matthew 6:33, but seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added to you. So we run into His heart. We seek Him first, and then all the other stuff starts to happen. The things we're dreaming of, or the things He's dreaming of for us. Yeah. He is pursuing us. And that's the thing. He's the one pursuing us. He's convincing us that He is a thrill of hope. And there is no more gloom where He is manifest. And that no more gloom comes from the same passage that Marina was sharing, only it's Isaiah 9, verse 1. Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who are in distress. And so it's an eternal word for us too. Yeah. So if you're struggling with unfulfilled hopes, take heart. He's with you. He's drawing you to him, and the light will come, and you can count on it. You can bank on it. It's going to happen because of who he is. Yeah.